The house had been quiet for so long that silence had learned my name. It creaked with every breath of wind, sighed beneath the weight of years, and smelled faintly of old books, camphor, and memories that no one visited any more. This house had once been loud, filled with laughter, arguments, slammed doors, and bedtime stories, but time, like a careful thief, had taken those sounds away one by one. That morning I was folding laundry at the small wooden table near the window, my hands slow, my joints aching the way they always did when rain threatened. I remember thinking how ordinary the day felt, too ordinary to change my life forever. Then I heard the car. It stopped abruptly, gravel crunching under impatient tires. I wasn't expecting anyone. My son hadn't visited in years, not since the divorce, not since the arguments that ended in slammed phones and long silences. And my daughter-in-law, well, she was like a shadow that passed through my life only when it needed something. The knock came sharp and hurried. I opened the door to find her standing there, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, phone clutched tightly in one hand. Behind her stood my two grandsons, small, thin, clutching backpacks that looked too heavy for their narrow shoulders. "Mom," she said, though she had never called me that before, "I need a favor." She didn't wait for my answer. "I have an emergency, something important. I'll be back in 4 hours. Just watch the boys. 4 hours." She said it like it was nothing, like 4 hours was a glass of water that could be swallowed in one breath. The boys looked up at me. The younger one, Daniel, had dirt smudged on his cheek and eyes too big for his face. The older one, Lucas, tried to look brave, standing straight like he was already learning how to protect his brother. "Come inside," I said softly. She exhaled, relief flashing across her face for just a second. She bent down, kissed their heads absently, and handed me a plastic bag. "There's snacks in here," she said. They already ate. She didn't hug them. She didn't look back when she turned toward the car. I stood in the doorway as she drove away, the dust rising behind her like a closing curtain. 4 hours, I told myself. The boys sat at the table while I poured them milk in chipped cups, the same cups my son had used when he was small. Daniel swung his legs nervously. "When is Mommy coming back?" he asked. "Soon." I said, "Very soon." I made them grilled cheese sandwiches. We watched cartoons. Lucas kept glancing at the door every time a car passed, his eyes lighting up, then dimming again. Children learn disappointment faster than hope. By the time the sun dipped low, I had checked my phone 6 times. No calls, no messages. I dialed her number. It rang until it stopped. I told myself not to worry. Emergencies take time. 4 hours could stretch. At 7, I reheated soup. At 8, Daniel fell asleep on the couch, his small hand curled around my finger as if he knew something I didn't. Lucas stayed awake, pretending not to be scared. "She's probably stuck," he said, trying to sound older than his years. "I'm sure she is," I replied, though my chest felt tight. At 10, I called again, straight to voicemail. I left a message this time, calm, polite, asterisk, "It's getting late, the boys are safe, please call me," asterisk, midnight came. The house felt different then, too quiet, too aware. I tucked the boys into my son's old bedroom. I sat between their beds until their breathing evened out. I watched their faces soften in sleep, innocent and trusting. That was when the fear truly arrived. It didn't scream, it whispered, asterisk, "What if she doesn't come back?" Asterisk, I pushed the thought away. Mothers come back. Even flawed ones, even selfish ones. Morning light spilled through the curtains. She still hadn't called. I made pancakes. Daniel asked for his mother again. Lucas didn't. I tried her number over and over until my phone warned me about low battery. I called hospitals. I called my son's old number disconnected. By evening, my hands were shaking. On the 3rd day, I filed a missing person report. On the 4th day, the officer looked at me gently and said, "We'll do what we can." On the 5th day, I realized something had shifted inside me. 4 hours had turned into a waiting room with no clock. I stood at the same window where I had watched her leave, Daniel wrapped around my leg, Lucas standing silently beside me. The road outside was empty. It stayed empty. I knelt down and pulled them close, pressing my cheek against their hair, breathing them in as if love itself could anchor them to me. "I don't know where your mother is," I whispered, my voice breaking for the first time, "but you're not alone. You hear me?" They nodded. And in that moment, without papers, without promises, without knowing how, I became more than a grandmother. 4 hours never ended. It simply became our life. The first year was the hardest. Not because I didn't love the boys. I did, with a ferocity that surprised me. But because love alone doesn't pay bills, doesn't sign school forms, doesn't quiet the voice in your head that whispered, asterisk, she could walk back in any minute and take them away. Asterisk, every knock at the door made my heart race. Every unfamiliar car slowed my breathing. I slept lightly, always listening, always afraid that the life we were building rested on borrowed time. I went to the police station twice a month at first, then once every few months, then once a year. Each time the answer was the same: no leads, no trace. It was as if my daughter-in-law had dissolved into the world and taken her name with her. People asked questions. Neighbors leaned over fences. Teachers frowned at enrollment forms. Doctors hesitated before asking who had legal authority. I learned how to smile through discomfort and say, "Their mother is unavailable." I learned how to stretch food, how to mend clothes, how to hide my worry when the electricity bill sat unopened on the counter. My pension was small, and pride didn't buy school shoes. I sold my wedding ring the second year. The boys never noticed. Or maybe they did, and were kind enough not to ask. Lucas grew taller too fast, like he was racing childhood itself. He became quiet, protective, his eyes always watching, always measuring the world for threats. Daniel stayed small and soft, his laughter loud, his heart worn openly on his sleeve. They asked about their mother less as time went on. At first, it was every night, then once a week. Then only on birthdays. I never lied to them. I only said what I knew. She loved you. I would say, because I needed to believe that part was true. Sometimes grown-ups get lost. Some nights, when they were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote letters I never sent. To her, to my son, to a God I wasn't sure was listening anymore. I kept them all in a brown envelope, along with every record I could find: school forms, hospital receipts, police reports, handwritten notes with dates and times. I didn't know why I kept them. I just knew I should. The third year, Daniel got sick, a fever that wouldn't break. His breathing shallow, his skin burning beneath my trembling hands. At the hospital, the nurse asked for parental consent. "I'm his grandmother," I said. She smiled kindly. "We need a legal guardian." I stood there, my voice stuck in my throat, while Daniel whimpered softly on the bed. In that moment, fear turned into something sharper: resolve. I filed for temporary guardianship the next morning. It took months of paperwork, interviews, and home visits. They asked why the mother hadn't returned. I told the truth. She left them for 4 hours, I said. It's been 3 years. The papers were stamped. Temporary became extended. Extended became uncertain, but it was enough to sign forms, to make decisions, to protect them. That night, Lucas hugged me longer than usual. "Does this mean they can't take us away?" he asked. I swallowed. "It means I'll fight if anyone tries." That was the first time he called me *Mom*. He froze the moment the words slipped out, eyes wide with panic. I waited for him to pull away to apologize. Instead, I wrapped my arms around him and held on. Daniel started calling me Mom the next day, like it had always been that way. The years moved quietly after that. School plays, scraped knees, late night homework, burnt dinners, and laughter that filled the house again. My old walls learned new sounds: music, arguments about chores, doors slammed in frustration and reopened in apology. I aged faster than I wanted to. My hair turned fully white. My hands shook more. Some mornings, getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. But every time I considered rest, I remembered two small faces waiting for breakfast. So I stood up. I saved every message I ever sent to her unanswered number. I printed screenshots. I dated everything. I never spoke badly about her in front of the boys, but I never erased her absence either. Silence can be louder than cruelty. On Lucas's 13th birthday, he didn't ask for a party. "Can we just stay home?" he said. We baked a cake together. Daniel smeared frosting everywhere. Lucas smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. That night after they went to bed, I found a message on my phone. Unknown number. Asterisk, I'm back. We need to talk. Asterisk, 8 years of silence. My hands went numb. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might split open. I read the message again and again, each time feeling something old and bitter rise in my chest. She hadn't asked about them. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't explained. She was back. And with her return came a fear I hadn't felt in years, not the fear of being alone, not the fear of failing. The fear of losing them. 2 days later, the envelope arrived. Legal letterhead, official language. Cold words, she was suing me for kidnapping her children. I sat at the kitchen table, the paper shaking in my hands, the same table where I had fed them, taught them, loved them into who they were becoming. 8 years of silence, and now, suddenly, she had found her voice. The courthouse smelled like polished floors and quiet judgment. I arrived early, clutching my purse, as if it were the only solid thing left in the world. Inside it was the envelope, thick, worn at the edges, heavy with years. I had checked it 3 times that morning, my fingers trembling each time they brushed against the paper inside. Not because I doubted what it contained, but because I knew what it could destroy. The boys walked beside me. Not boys anymore, really. Lucas was taller than I was now, his shoulders broad, his jaw tight with a seriousness no child should carry. Daniel walked close, his fingers brushing my sleeve every few steps, as if to reassure himself that I was still there. They didn't understand why we were here, not fully. I had only told them that their mother wanted to talk to a judge. That sometimes adults used courts instead of words. She was already seated when we entered. 8 years had changed her, but not in the way it had changed me. Her hair was styled carefully, her clothes crisp and expensive looking. She looked rested, whole, like someone who had lived freely while time passed somewhere else. When her eyes met mine, there was no warmth in them, only calculation. The lawyer beside her whispered something. She nodded, lips pressed together. We took our seats. The judge entered, and everyone rose. My knees ached as I stood, the weight of the moment settling deep into my bones. The proceedings began. Her lawyer spoke first. He used words like asterisk, unlawfully withheld asterisk, asterisk, emotional manipulation asterisk, asterisk, elderly incapacity asterisk. He painted a picture of a confused old woman who had taken advantage of a difficult situation and stolen 2 children from their rightful mother. I listened quietly. Then she took the stand. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue before a single tear had fallen. I trusted her, she said, her voice trembling just enough. I asked her to watch my sons for a few hours while I handled a personal crisis. When I came back, they were gone. My heart stuttered. She spoke of fear, of panic, of searching everywhere. She claimed she had been turned away, ignored, silenced. She never once looked at the boys. Lucas's hands clenched into fists. Daniel's breathing grew shallow. I wanted to reach for them, but I stayed still. Let the truth stand on its own, I told myself. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand slowly, my legs unsteady but my voice calm. I told the story simply, about 4 hours, about unanswered calls, about nights waiting by the window, about police reports and hospital visits and school mornings and birthdays. I didn't cry, I didn't accuse. I just spoke. Her lawyer tried to shake me. Isn't it true, he asked sharply, that you never made significant efforts to locate the children's mother? I met his eyes. I filed missing person reports. I said, I called hospitals. I called numbers that no longer existed. I waited. He scoffed. You waited, yes, I replied, for 8 years. Murmurs filled the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. Do you have documentation? He asked. I stood. Yes, Your Honor. I walked to the bench and handed him the envelope. It landed softly in his hands, but the sound echoed through the room like a gavel strike. He opened it carefully. Silence stretched, he flipped through pages, his brow furrowed, his jaw tightened, time-stamped messages. Official reports, school and medical records, and finally the letter. His eyes paused there longer than anywhere else. He looked up at me then. Do the children know what's inside this envelope? He asked quietly. I glanced at Lucas and Daniel. They were watching me, searching my face for answers I had protected them from for years. Not yet, I said. The judge nodded slowly. We'll take a recess, he announced. As everyone stood, my daughter-in-law finally looked at the boys. They didn't look back, and for the first time since she walked away 8 years ago, I saw something crack in her perfect composure. Because lies are loud, but truth waits patiently, sealed in an envelope until the right moment to be opened. The courtroom felt different when we returned, quieter, heavier. The judge sat straighter, the envelope now resting beside him, no longer closed, no longer a mystery. My daughter-in-law's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear, his confidence gone, replaced by tension that pulled his face tight. She nodded again, but her hands trembled in her lap. The judge cleared his throat. I have reviewed the documents, he said. All of them. He lifted the letter. This, he continued, was written 8 years ago, in your handwriting. Her face drained of color. He read aloud, not loudly, not dramatically, calmly, precisely. A letter written in haste, in exhaustion, in selfish honesty. Asterisk, I can't do this anymore. I need time. I need freedom. Please keep them safe. I'll come back when I'm ready. Asterisk, the words hung in the air like smoke that refused to disappear. Daniel gasped softly. Lucas went completely still. The judge folded the letter and set it down. You did not report your children missing, he said, looking directly at her. You did not contact law enforcement. You did not attempt communication for 8 years. Meanwhile, this woman, he gestured toward me, filed reports, sought guardianship, provided housing, education, and medical care. Her lawyer stood abruptly. Your Honor, the judge raised a hand. The claim of kidnapping is dismissed. The gavel struck once. Final. Daniel's breath broke. He pressed his face into my shoulder, tears soaking through my coat. Lucas didn't cry. He simply closed his eyes, the last thread of doubt finally snapping. The judge turned to the boys. You are old enough, he said gently, to have a voice in this matter. Do you wish to remain with your grandmother? Lucas stood. Yes, he said. His voice didn't shake. She never left. Daniel nodded hard. She's our mom. The word echoed. My daughter-in-law sobbed then, not the soft, practiced tears from earlier, but loud, broken ones. But no one rushed to comfort her. She had already made her choice 8 years ago. The judge granted permanent custody. As we left the courthouse, the envelope was light in my hands. Empty, the truth had been spoken. It no longer needed to be carried. Outside, the sun warmed our faces. Lucas walked on my left, Daniel on my right, their arms linked with mine like they had always belonged there. She really left us, Daniel whispered. Yes, I said softly, but she didn't take everything. Lucas squeezed my arm. She didn't take us. That was my revenge, not anger, not punishment, not hate, just the truth spoken calmly, clearly, and at the right time. She left them for 4 hours. I stayed for 8 years, and in the end, that was the only evidence that mattered.